lastly, what I want to talk about today is the institution of Sankin Kotai, alternate attendance, which, if you can imagine kind of the beating mechanical heart of that mechanical nightingale that Ieyasu had set up, this would be it. This institution is in many ways the central one that we all need to understand in order to understand why the Tokugawa regime was able to ensure peace throughout Japan. It was a system where daimyo from all over Japan, with very few exceptions, some daimyo who lived especially far away got partial exemption from this, or sometimes even complete exemption, but almost all daimyo had to travel to Edo once every 2 years. And they had to spend a year living in Edo once they got there. Then, after that year was over, they had to go back to their domains, and in another year make the same trek again. Their wives and children had to live in Edo permanently, or at least the children of their primary wife, their concubine's children, could sometimes be raised back in their domains, and that often did happen. But the heir and the wife of all daimyo had to live in Edo because they were basically hostages to the good behavior of the daimyo. And the daimyo, as I said, they had to travel. Basically, once every 2 years, had to make this sometimes very distant journey to Edo, no matter where they were coming from. This is just Honshu. There's Shikoku right here. There's Kyushu right here. And you were expected to cover your own expenses to go to Edo. And when you went, you could never just go alone. A daimyo always displayed his rank and his power by the number of retainers that he maintained. This was an expectation in samurai culture, and certainly in the Edo period, it was codified into law. If you were of this and that rank, you had to have this and that many foot soldiers with you. You had to have this and that many carriers of equipment. So many people in your party had to be mounted. And this all cost an insane amount of money. First of all, going from place to place, then stopping in inns, food, and then lodging in Edo for all of these men, usually not their families, but usually just these samurai men that you brought with you. The expectation that you'd have to have a mansion in Edo at all, and then when you got to Edo, there were a series of expensive social obligations you had to fulfill. You had to have dress suitable for official ceremonies. You went to present yourself to the shogun. You had to dress sumptuously. You were expected to give people gifts. So basically, this whole system of traveling from place to place was very expensive. Then being in Edo was also very expensive. You certainly had to maintain a house there all the time. You had to maintain a household there all the time. If you were married, which certainly most daimyo took pains to be, because you needed heirs. But essentially, the Tokugawa were doing several things at once. They were keeping their potential enemies, as well as their friends, close to themselves in Edo, right? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, or just basically keep them all close so you can watch all of them. Then you had hostages, and lastly, you had the daimyo spend so much of their time, so much of their energy, and most of all, so much of their money on fulfilling this very important ritual political obligation which if you fail to fulfill, you would be your line could be ended, and that was very serious. You kept everybody so busy and so broke that they never really had enough time and money to plot rebellion against you. And that is really the main reason for the introduction of this system. And something like this had been tried before. Certainly the Toyotomi had used a system that was somewhat similar, and the Tokugawa also had made chief retainers live with the lord in the castle town in their own domains. And a lot of this came from previous governments, but it was enforced and systematized in the Tokugawa era so much that it really became more than an obligation. It became an institution of Japanese life, of samurai life. An institution is basically a stable and recurring pattern of human behavior. So this Sankin Kotai became an institution in the Tokugawa government and actually functioned as it was intended, as one of the main supports of that system. Okay, when we come back next time, we'll look especially deeply into Tokugawa interactions with other social classes and finish our discussion about why this Tokugawa Bakufu was so innovative and so stable, and also set the stage a little bit for talking about some of the problems that eventually ended up, after a certain amount of time to be sure, but eventually ended up undermining this system.